You spoke about the country looking inward, developing all the resources that we have at home so that we get the most value from it. But don't you think that we'll be speaking a bit detached from reality? Because if you look at the SMEs right now, if you one of their major will I call it problem now is access to credit. To funds, of course. And, you know, they have this high interest rates and all of that. Don't you think these are issues that we should resolve first before also considering these other parts that you've raised?
Those are the policy part of the issues. Those are the areas where you can say the government can come in and work alongside the banks. I believe why we have such a high interest rate currently is also partially due to the high inflation that we suffered a few years back, that is just that has just plateaued now. So I believe now that inflation has plateaued, if it goes down consistently in the next 1 year, then there's a fat chance that CBN is going to drop the rate. When they drop the rate, then but beyond that, I also expect that the BOIs of this world, the development banks of Nigeria, the Bank of Industries and so on, should be able to come in to partner with small businesses so that they can give interest at more friendly rates to those that will borrow. Because clearly, I agree with you, to do business at an interest rate of about 30% is not going to help anybody. The kind of business you will do at that rate has to be something I don't want to mention on air. It's going to be too difficult to pay back your loan. Yes, government and some other government-funded or backed banks. For instance, in the agricultural sector, I know the government has just recapitalized the Bank of Agriculture or something to that nature, and I know the BOI is there, and then I also know we have Development Bank of Nigeria. So those are areas where the government should strengthen. When you strengthen those access to credit and capital, I agree with you, clearly it's going to help in terms of helping to fund this small and medium scale enterprise. I was trying to talk about lithium because I remember just about a few years ago, we discovered that we have a huge lithium deposit in Nasarawa State here. So what I'm also looking at, which is a good idea, I remember I think the minister said something like we're not going to export it, which I think is good. Rather than export it, you know, two things are happening right now in the world. The world is going solar in terms of energy and power, and then the world is also going clean energy in terms of vehicles. So it's better when you bring these industries to Nigeria, let them come and establish their production facilities here in Nigeria. That way, you add value to the lithium, you extract maximum value. You can now export these batteries, whether within Nigeria or outside Nigeria, whether Africa. That way, you are able to bring in value. Because the only way you can grow your economy is to grow your GDP. And how do you grow your GDP? There must be production consistently going on in your economy. So I think the government is on the right path. What I want to see is this action, these words, backed with action. When we say these are the things we can produce in Nigeria, you always first think of how do we add value to this so that we can bring in the end product right here on our soil, rather than export these things to some countries at some rate that you don't even determine. You and I know that, for instance, no matter how much oil we produce today, we do not determine the price. And the same thing with if you produce gold, you produce mercury, you produce any of these materials, some people sit somewhere there in Wall Street and determine the price. So instead of exporting your goods as raw materials, the thing I want the government to do is let us see how we can attract, and we have very fine ideas in Nigeria. I know many of these startups are being given tax breaks, given so many other incentives. So we need to push this further. The government needs to have a system where you tell, look, rather than produce your cars and come and sell it in Nigeria, and then you have to pay very high interest rate at the port, why not do what is done in other countries? I remember when I last visited South Africa, I was talking to people and I realized something that was strange. A lot of people were driving brand new cars, they were not driving Tokubo cars. And then I asked them, how are you able to finance these cars? You know what shocked me? The price of a brand new, for instance, Mercedes-Benz then was cheaper than the price of a Tokubo Mercedes-Benz in Nigeria comparatively. What happened? They had Benz come to produce their Benz in South Africa. So you look at the things that Nigerians consume, it can be done. Ask the CBN, sit down. What are those things we import more often? We can talk to the producers of these things. Produce in Nigeria, we're going to give you very fine incentives in terms of tax and all these things, so that you see what Trump is doing. You might say the man is crazy, you might say whatever you want to say, but he's telling Apple, you can't go produce in India and come and sell in my country. If you can't produce in America, then it's going to tax you to death. So we need to get to that point where everything, if not most things, I mean, if not everything, at least most things. I also always remember what happened with the South Korean economy. They had this saying, I can't remember how it is said in Korea, but what he said was, whatever we cannot produce, then we don't need to consume.
Okay, let's look at it this other way. Is it possible in trying to grow our GDP, our local production, that government streamline its focus? You just talked about the lithium deposit in here, that we can also begin to attract companies to come in and invest in lithium aspect. Now, in agriculture also, we talk about so many, we have potential in so many agricultural products, but we do not have that kind of a comparative advantage when it comes to comparing with other.
No, that's why I talked about comparative advantage. What you need to do is look at which one is your strength that we can produce more. Then let's focus on it as our main goal. We can't take 20 crops at the same time. We will look at maybe 5, 6, 7 and say, look at these crops. We will, you remember those days, the old Bende, now Delta, and they had the comparative advantage in rubber production. That was why you had Michelin and so all of them, they were in Edo that time, not Edo of now. I'm talking about when it was Bende State. So those are the things. We had the Excite battery in Ibadan. You remember that? So these are things we can bring back. So we look at areas where you have, this is our comparative advantage. We can produce this better than any other country. Then that is why I also said, let the government sit down with the CBN. What are the things Nigeria need foreign exchange more for, that we import the more? Then look at the ones we can streamline and say, look, this and this and this, tick it off. We can produce them in Nigeria. I was in Russia some times back, and what I learned there was that the cost of buying any Russian produced good is far cheaper than buying anything that you imported to Russia. So they were protecting their economy. You see, they will tell you free market, but everybody is doing protectionism. You are just, they make you a dumping ground and tell you, come and sign some agreement, you're going to have free market. There's no free market anywhere. Trump is telling us right now that there's no free market. So we cannot open our economy and make ourselves a dumping ground. So to grow your economy, you must have comparative advantages, like I said. When you get those ones that are comparative advantages, you know, say this and these things, we won't let you bring it in. And if you bring it in, we're going to tax you at such a rate that people won't be able to afford it. So you have comparative ones that you produce in Nigeria, so that Nigerians can say, look, these are the ones we do. And when you do that, you are not only creating jobs, you are creating a very strong microeconomic system, because those companies will employ people, they will pay taxes, the government will be funded for that, Nigerians will have more money in their pocket. Right. Rather than changing all your, whatever you earn into dollars to go and import nonsense at home, why not produce most of these things and make your economy stronger? That way, we can now begin to talk about $1 trillion economy.